Thanks very much indeed, and Chairman, and I'd like to welcome all our organisations here before us today. We've had a session, and I hope that some of you tuned in with the Minister before your session, and I think it was told him too that we felt that maybe he should have come first and him after, or maybe the best thing is a debate around the table with all of us, because sometimes you root out the truth and you cut the jargon out. I have a number of questions, and I obviously others might want to, but I'd like to request maybe to start with some of these answers, if you don't mind. So you might take them down rather than I coming in and give other deputies a chance. Bluefin tuna quota. Can anyone answer me why? And I've got a very good statement I made to the Minister there. Since the 1990s, we haven't applied for bluefin tuna quota, and why? Can anyone answer me as to why that has happened? The second question, the Minister made it very clear he's engaging with you. The way I felt from what he said very often is that the case? You might answer me. Fuel subsidy I raised with him, and I asked him the question if the French and others can give a fuel subsidy to their fishermen. He said he can't do it here. I can't understand. We're all in the one European umbrella. Europe works when it comes to taking our quota off us, but when it, and dividing it to other countries. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to giving us a little bit of a subsidy for the Irish fishermen, why can't? Have you any idea? Because he said you met him several times as to why that hasn't happened. And also on the decommissioning, can there be a bit of movement made on decommissioning? Because as far as I know, and am I right here, is there a different criteria applying to boats decommissioning in other EU states than those being applied to our own fishermen? Is it true that fishing fleets in countries that were paid aid to temporarily cease fishing activity will not have to pay back this money when they're decommissioning their boats, as is required of the Irish fishermen who are also temporarily ceased fishing? In the conditions attached to the Irish tie-up scheme, were Irish fishermen notified that this money would have to be returned if you later applied to and were successful in accessing the decommissioning scheme? Do you agree money paid to compensate fishermen for loss of earnings should be returned? In my view, fishermen have they not lost enough under this government by its gifting away of 25% of the actual fish they are catching? And the Minister continuously admits that they've lost 15%. He's keeping 15% figure, that this is what's lost to the Irish fishing sector. I've heard 25%. Who's right and who's wrong here? And I suppose and another thing too is that he continues to tell us, and he did that here today. No, we tried to correct him. That he said that the task force were unanimous in their agreement for a decommissioning scheme. Is that the case? And are we wrong? And I just, I suppose. Yeah, just saying the task force. Yeah, just maybe one or two other small things. In MEPs, are they engaging with you? Because like there's a huge negotiations going on next week. It seems to be always just coming up to Christmas week. You're the lastminute.com, and sometimes frantic, like Brexit, frantic decisions are made and bad decisions are made in the last minute. So are the MEPs engaging with you, fishermen organisation, putting in a foundation and a clear foundation for, maybe a good news story coming out of Europe in the next week or so? As I say, why are negotiations last minute? Why aren't they taking place? Sean, you said it earlier on as well. So look, in fairness, if you need me to go back over some of these again, I will, but I'd appreciate maybe Patrick or others could answer the question. Okay. Thanks. Will I start with Sean O'Donovan? Yeah. We go Patrick.
Thanks, Deputy Collins. You have a lot of questions there, so
I respect that.
Sorry?
You'll be brief.
Yeah. I'm always brief, Chair.
I was thinking that one, yeah.
Just on the I'll just take the ones that and I know my colleagues will deal with the bluefin tuna and other things here. The fuel subsidy, we cannot understand as an industry why a scheme hasn't been introduced, and we are demanding at this stage that a scheme be introduced. The French, the Germans, the Swedes have even introduced schemes. So there is no impediment to the Minister in actually introducing a scheme. He's been given the go-ahead by the European Commission under the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund to do so last, I think on the 24th of March, he was given that go-ahead, and we're still waiting for. On the different decommissioning rates, there are different conditions, but my understanding, and I think I know most of the countries that are decommissioning, is that the one thing that is common across them, both in the French and the German and the Danish and the Dutch, is that they all have ended up with having to repay the temporary tie-up aid if they had it. But there's one thing to have it. I would doubt in the end, knowing how things operate, that some of these countries will end up paying it back, but that's it. The other question that you mentioned, Deputy, is about this 15%. This 15% is a misnomer, and sorry, the figure is correct, but it totally underestimates the real effect in Ireland. The two biggest stocks in Ireland that got hit here are mackerel 26% and nephrops at 14%. So because they are so important to the Irish industry, the cuts there are the ones that you need to look at. The overall 15% gives you a distorted picture in relation to it. And finally, on the MEPs, I think the one thing, the December Fisheries Council, because the Parliament has no role on setting tax and quotas, they can't get involved. It isn't called decision as such. But we do have relationships with the MEPs, but when it comes to tax and quotas, we concentrate on the ministers and the Commission. But I didn't answer all your questions, but Patrick, I'm sure can answer.
John, will I leave you in next, and I'll go to Patrick?
Yeah. I'm going to leave the tuner for Patrick anyway, because that's his forte. So just clarity on one or two of the things there. I think Sean answered actually most of the questions, but just on the Brexit, on the 15% and the 25%, it's very important to point out. You know, it was an old thing in fishing, and it was don't count the fish, count the money. Yeah. So. And the year before Brexit, Ireland's wild caught fish was 180 million, and in the Brexit transfers, Ireland gave 43 million. So that's 25% in my book. So 43 million is what Ireland gave in the Brexit transfers. That's that one. On the engagement with the minister did actually, and I even put it in my statement that the minister did start the engagement earlier this year because of the way things go now with the negotiations with the UK. So that did start earlier, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to finish any earlier because the negotiations are difficult and ongoing, and looking like we're going to be on provisional tax again for the first 3 months, which is not ideal, but probably better than having another bad deal.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Murphy, you'll be brief.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Deputy Collins, for your question. So I brought some visual aids. These are the fact sheets that came out from the department on the amount of fish that we catch and the fish that we inside in our waters, and there's a big change to what we were being told. So like the 15%, I'll explain it very simply. We don't catch 100% of even what John said of the 180 million worth of fish that is allowed to us, but I can guarantee you, as Sean and my colleague have said, both the nephrops and the mackerel are caught virtually to the 100%. So all the fish that we lost was, as John said, was the money fish. So when you break it down, it was more than 25%. What we also didn't take into account was the non-quota species, a very, very important fishery, which was rockall squid. And we don't have access to that now because we're not allowed in there. And that's a direct result of what happened with Brexit. We lost access there. And this goes from 5 million to 10 million. So you can see how fast this money ramps up. And as John said, in the scallop men, the fish that they lost. So on the bluefin tuna, we were told, Deputy, by previous ministers that the price we would have to pay to swap out, it wouldn't be worth it, right? This is despite the facts that we produced actual documents, evidence of sales dockets. One of our members still has them, the original dockets of landing these fish. Derek Davis did a programme on bluefin tuna and the fishery that we had, and there was members from the department there saying this is fantastic, this is great, and yet we have no tuna. We have seen other countries have used the change in migration patterns of these fish to sensibly ask for a quota, because these fish are feeding off our native stocks, as my chairman has pointed out, and we would be entitled under that to get it. The problem is that ICAT say, well, Europe has your fish, it's up to you to go to your colleagues in Europe and look for a quota. We pointed out in our talks, we were at the ICAT meeting, where the movement of fish, such as big-eyed tuna, are going to have a massive problem for our fisheries, because we don't have a quota for them, we're not allowed to land them, but yet we will catch them mixed in with the other fisheries, not targeted, they'll be mixed in, yet we'll be deemed to be IUU fishing because we don't have a quota for them. And we can't swap it out because we don't have a Mediterranean licence to land such fish. And this is what we are trying to regulate and fight for ourselves. And in fairness, this year, for the first time, our Minister has informed us that he is looking for a quota for tuna. And as my colleagues have said, this is crazy, because this could choke fisheries. If we catch this fish, you're not allowed to go fishing for the other stocks that you have. In case you catch this, again, you'll be deemed as IUU quota. Back to some of the remarks that you made, Deputy, if that's okay, on the MEPs. Mick Wallace is the only MEP that has made any contact with me. I did meet Grace O'Sullivan in Ringaskiddy at an event of restoring our ocean lighthouse building. I was a speaker at this, as she was. I think I got 5 minutes with her, and I was shocked to learn after the meeting that she stepped down from the PESH committee. So we have no full-time representative on Europe's PESH committee, which I find absolutely incredible. The size of the waters and the importance, as we were saying, the custodians of the sea, the amount of fish that spawn and breed in our waters. We're talking about blue whiting, you know, like millions of tons. The catch is 1.39 million, but that's only a proportion of the biomass of the stock. Again, this is down. I brought the stock book with me today, and we have real concerns about the way that the advice is given. I was at a meeting the other day, and I was told that the advice for hake was 83,000 tonnes. 83,000 tonnes. And then I had to challenge that, and I said, no, that's not correct. And he said, oh no, that's the maximum sustainable yield, that's the advice we're given. Yet last year we got 44,000 tonnes. This year we're getting an increase of 13%, but a real increase of 3%, because it's knocking off 10% of what we took last year. And this doesn't even rebalance the fact that this stock has seen a benchmark, and the biomass of the stock has been revised upwards 71%. 71% of an increase in the biomass, and we get a 13% increase, where we had a 25% cut last year, and I think it was up to 20s from 2019 all the way through, and we've been absolutely savaged. I think there was, one last point, the article that Sean refers to, and there's an actual article, Article 26.2, and it was put into legislation in the European Union to allow us to get our fuel aid. We met with the Commission and several different times, all of us, and they told us this is what they want, and I just want to explain it. They feel it's better to support boats to go fishing rather than get nothing out of it, seeing them tied to the pier wall and they're bringing in no fish, creating employment ashore. They want boats to go fishing, yet we can't get a subsidy for fuel to allow boats to go to sea to fish financially viably. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Chair, I hope that you will take the time to look at our presentation. Like last year, we put in pictures of boats of people that were spending hundreds of thousands of euros putting these boats out to sea safely. One of those boats in those pictures is going to be decommissioned, scrapped. And it's going to be undervalued. It's not going to get the money, I believe, that it's due, what it cost to buy that boat and put that boat in the water first. And that is why, like Jerry Early said, he didn't support, their organisation didn't support the decommissioning scheme. We acknowledged that because we couldn't get any fish, the books wouldn't match up, and it was inevitable there was going to be a decommissioning scheme. But we made sure as an organisation that it was put into the draft report that our organisation did not agree with the terms and conditions of the scheme, that it was flawed, and that's why we didn't support the decommissioning scheme as it was written. The principle of a decommissioning scheme, yes, because we were in desperation, and as John said, we have no choice. Boats have to get out. There's just not enough fish there after losing 25% one quarter.
Yeah,
thank you, Chair, for
and look,
indulging me.
Yeah, and we have your submission, and it's
yes.
a really, really comprehensive submission. If I go back to online, Mr. O'Donnell, you might join into the meeting again if you could.
Thanks, Chair. I actually missed part of the question, but I think it's to do with the whole quota setting process and the delays around that. Essentially, in terms of the MEPs, we've had experience here in Brussels and we've come out here to meet with them. We've had good support from MEPs. We've Colin Markey with Fine Gael. He's actually a stand-in on the Fisheries Committee. He has actually joined us to represent us at the Fisheries Committee to raise issues that are important to us, particularly in relation to the Norwegian access issue, which is a real important issue for us nationally. We've also participated with the likes of Chris McManus. He's also brought a delegation from the industry out as part of getting to know people within the Commission. And I think it's really important for us to understand that from an Ireland Inc. point of view, the real decision making when it comes to negotiating for quotas is with the Commission. We've got a team of 3 people or 4 that are negotiating for quotas on behalf of Europe and on behalf of Ireland. And a lot of this work is mandated by the Commission itself, happens behind closed doors, and there's all sorts of interests. So the industry representatives here, we work together, a lot of us, to try and improve the situation. We fight the good fight. But really the message that we have in relation to the quotas and the treatment of Ireland is that Europe sees Ireland in some ways as being a soft touch in terms of the way we've been hit in relation to Brexit. They realise that we've been really badly treated. They put the bar funding in place. It's a stopgap measure. It's actually downsizing the fleet. It hasn't actually been spent as it was intended. And so we really have to pick up the fight at home. Our minister, our government, our whole of government approach has to take the sector seriously. We have to go into Europe at Commission level and fight for our sector. If we don't have that united front, we're going to diminish and shrink further. And we've lost about 50% of our sector over the last 10 years. The Germans, for example, have 4 times the production capacity or the processing capacity of Ireland. They're 2.4 million. The Dutch, one Dutch company, its combined consolidated turnover is in excess of the total Irish turnover, including aquaculture. So we're losing out. We have the most productive waters in Europe. But if we don't get quotas, if we don't manage the access, we're in a downhill slide. So we need to lift our gallop collectively, and we need to get support at government level and at department level to fight the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Early, online.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate what Ian said, our last contribution was that, yeah, we found from our angle as well that we get a lot of support from the MEPs, Chris O'Sullivan, Chris McManus, and also Colin Markey. So in that sense, we're quite satisfied with the cooperation from the MEPs. I have to say that. Just on the bluefin tuna and any hopeful quota that we might get, I just wanted on record as well that, like it and possible spur dog, that it gets distributed fairly among the whole fleet, and that includes inshore boats as well, Chair. Nothing else to add. Thank you.